Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Applying Innovation and Thought Leadership to Lead Your Customers. My name is Barrett Thompson, and I lead the marketing for pricing excellence solutions at Zilliant. As a part of our efforts to advance the very best practices among B2B manufacturers, distributors, and industrial service providers, we sponsor this webinar series with select guest speakers who have innovative and inspiring ideas relevant to your world. Before we get to the introductions for the speakers today, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items for everyone on the call. First, please note that your audio is on mute. If you take a look at your GoToMeeting control panel on the right side, you'll notice that there is a questions field in your GoToWebinar control panel. Can we show this on our next slide, please? Please feel free to pose questions to us throughout the webinar. You can use that panel there, and we'll get them answered during the Q&A session at the end. If for some reason we're not able to fit all of the questions in, we'll be sure to respond to you via email. We do take your confidentiality seriously, and if you have a question that you don't want to pose in a public forum like this, something that's sensitive about your business, feel free to contact us directly via email at webinars@zilliant.com. If you're active on Twitter, you can follow us at Zilliant. And also today there's a Twitter feed hashtag that we've created just for this webinar, and that is hashtag Zilliant Innovation, all one word. All right, I'd like to introduce our guests today, guest speakers. We're fortunate to have today two speakers, Deb Mills-Scofield and Dirk Beveridge. Deb Mills-Scofield leads her own consultancy practice, Mills-Scofield LLC, where she applies her 20-plus years of experience with manufacturing, service, and high technology companies to help organizations create and implement their strategic plans. Deb is also a partner at Glengarry LLC, an early-stage venture capital firm in Cleveland, Ohio. Deb, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Barrett. It's my pleasure.
Okay, let me also introduce Mr. Dirk Beveridge. Dirk is the founder of UnleashWD Summit and the CEO of Fourth Generation Systems, a sales, marketing, and leadership development firm that helps distributors and manufacturers become more competitive and provide deeper value to customers. He has worked with over 3,000 firms as a leadership consultant, trainer, and speaker in the past 2 decades. Dirk, we're glad to have you with us.
Barrett, I am so glad to be here, but I got to tell you, Mr. Dirk Beveridge, I think you're showing my age, bud. But I'm glad
Didn't mean anything by that.
All right.
Didn't mean anything by it. Well, thank you both, Deb and Dirk. You know, before we jump into your formal content, I just wanted to give each of you a chance to take 30 seconds or so and tell us something that you're passionate about. Could be in your professional world, your personal world, either one. Deb, why don't you go first?
Thank you. So one of the things I'm very passionate about is I teach, mentor, advise, etc., at Brown University, my alma mater, and in working with the social entrepreneurs there and the, for lack of a better term, regular entrepreneurs, I'm just learning so much about innovative business models. They really stress the view of outcome versus output, which is a passion of mine, meaning and money, and these are all lessons and learnings I can take back to my clients that I wouldn't otherwise be exposed to, as well as providing a talent pipeline for the students and for my clients. So it's just, it's invigorating and it's inspiring, and these millennials just totally rock.
Sounds like a unique environment, a place to learn a lot of things that you couldn't otherwise pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
Dirk, how about you?
Awesome. Thanks, Barrett. My personal mission, Barrett, is to make a real difference. And I wake up every day thinking about our customer base. I'm passionate about the wholesale distribution business and distributors and their channel partners. And what I've identified is that more and more this segment of our economy, which represents 1 in 20 private sector workers, 250,000 businesses, more and more they're thinking and questioning, what do we need to do to remain relevant? And I think innovation is a big part of that answer, not the entire answer. So I'm passionate about finding new ways to bring new insights outside the industry insight to distributors to help us remain relevant going forward. And we're just blessed to have that opportunity to do it every day, and I love what we do.
Well, Thank you both. We're looking forward to the material that you prepared for us. And I want to encourage those of you on the call, set aside instant messaging, set aside the email. You owe it to yourself to focus on this. We're going to hear first from Deb. She's a natural teacher and mentor, and she's got a message that's relevant to everyone here on the call. So get ready for the good stuff. Deb, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barrett. So today we're going to talk about applying innovation and thought leadership to lead your customers. And one of the things I think that's really important as we look at this is the very first thing is we all talk about customer centricity and we're all customer focused and all that kind of stuff. But how really focused on your customers are you, and how much do you understand them? And a term that I like to use is called lens shifting, or shifting your lens, for lack of a better phrase. I love this picture. I, for the life of me, have not been able to find out who actually did it. So if anybody on this call knows the actual artist, please, please let me know. But what this shows is we can all be on the same plane, if you will, but we look at things from such totally different angles. John Hagel, who's one of my heroes since I was a kid, but he's not really that old, wrote a book with John Seely Brown, the guy that invented the mouse and the GUI user interface, called The Power of Pull. And if we think about where we've been with customers in all of our different industry, it's been what I would call a push model. So I come from Bell Labs, AT&T, and in our infinite wisdom and hubris, we would have these wonderful things we thought were just the coolest thing, and then we would go push it on our customers because they might not really know what they needed. And sometimes these things fall flat on their face because, frankly, they did know what they needed and it wasn't what we were providing. So I would encourage you to look at the world from your customer's perspective, not from what you think it is or what you would like it to be, but what it really is. What are the jobs they really need to have done instead of what are the jobs you wish they would like you to do or you'd rather just do? And that's a phrase that Clay Christensen's used and comes from a Harvard professor years ago. There's several ways to do this. Voice of the customer, a phrase I like and a way to do it is called a day in the life. So have you hung out with your customers for a day? So go and do that if you haven't. And if you do, that is absolutely fabulous. But see what it's like for them. What are the things they're dealing with before, during, and after they're using your stuff, for lack of a better term? One of the examples I like, and this is not a U.S. example, is in Colombia, as in the country, there is a more prevalent exposure to cell service and very little internet. And so people have been using cell or text messaging as a way to help people find jobs. And one of the first entrants into that market would just send out a text to people that had subscribed based on companies that were paying for this service saying, you know, there's a job opportunity in Bogota at this address at 2 o'clock tomorrow. And they were wondering why they really weren't getting a lot of usage. And another company went in and sat and watched what these folks were doing who were looking for work and realized you had no idea about the company, what the position was, and your decision was, do I pay bus fare to go to what might not be a safe area in Bogota or use that same money to buy a meal for my family? Which got to the fact that the first company never looked at what are the forces acting on their customers. So when you have a client and they're using your stuff, what are the forces acting on them that make it either harder, easier, whatever, and really try to understand that. One of the other examples, and I speak from this personally, and if any of you out there have children, when our first child was still an infant, we decided, my husband and I, to crawl around the house to see things from that child's perspective and know what to baby-proof. One of the things that amazed me is when I was down crawling around and my husband was in another room yelling to me, I couldn't hear him as well as if I was standing up above the counter. So there are very subtle ways that we see tremendous differences if you will just walk in your customer's shoes and spend a day in their life. Which then leads me to this question I ask a lot, which is, when was the last time you tried to find your product? Searched Google, catalogs, whatever. You ordered your products or services. When's the last time you called customer service for help? Oh, and did they answer, and how long did you have to wait till they did? When's the last time you actually unpacked your product? So, you bought your stuff and it came. By the way, I do love the word stuff. You unpacked it where there's like a lot of packaging stuff that was hard to get rid of, needed recycled. When's the last time you installed or assembled what you make? Was it easy? Was it hard? Were there instructions? Could you understand them? When was the last time you used your products or returned or had to have them repaired? And then if it's a product that has a definitive life cycle, when's the last time you actually got rid of it? And could you get rid of it? And how hard was it to get rid of? This leads, we have a few examples in the B2C world. Zappos and Nordstrom are known for unparalleled, incredible customer service. And in the B2B world, Salesforce and Terasys are known for fabulous customer service.
Hey, Deb.
Yes,
Sorry, this is Dirk. Hey, I love this, and I think these questions you're asking are just spot on, because I know a lot of businesses have not done these things, and I love your pride to get us to do this. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of the word customer journey, right? Because
Right.
the customers that Zappos has and Terrace has, your business, our business, Zilliant has, it's all about a customer journey, right? From the very first touch when they see our marketing material all the way to your last bullet point up here. We got, how do they get rid of your product? At any one of those points, right, can make or break the relationship. And 99.9% of those can be great. But if that last 1% falls through the cracks or doesn't meet that need that you're talking about, that's when things fall down. So I love this thought process, and it makes me think about this whole customer journey thought process and the need to innovate throughout the entire customer journey, I guess.
Well, and that brings up a great point, Dirk, because one of the things I see a lot with my clients, and in fact with two in particular right now, we're actually working on restructuring the organizations for that, is if you think of a typical org chart, CEOs at the top, and then it goes all the way down to, the janitor.
Yeah.
Customers usually aren't in there. And so we built organizations that are, in general, not always, but in general, siloed by function, so that in order to deliver a seamless, delightful customer journey, we've created so many hurdles and barriers inside our organization to be able to do that. And one of the areas that is ripe for innovation, and it's slowly starting, but it's also, I think, one of the scariest, which is why it's a journey getting my clients to do it, is what I will call management innovation. So instead of just innovating in supply chain, which I'll talk about in a little bit, in product services, all the stuff you're used to, what if we innovate the way we manage the business, like flip the org chart around where the customer's on top, and we actually organize our business to deliver a delightful, easy, compelling customer journey instead of fighting ourselves internally all the time because of how we've put up these artifacts from history on how we're structured to make that happen. And that is, I think, a fledgling and very powerful mode of innovation that we need to seriously think about if we're going to delight our customers.
Agreed 100%. Very cool.
Thank you. That was a great lead-in. So if we think about what you and I have just chatted about, part of that is recognizing patterns to understand where people come in and out, the journey they want to be on. And we tend to look for patterns that we're used to looking for. We look at things that are the same and things that are different according to factors that the industry we're in has always used, or we've been taught in school, or in whatever. So I happen to love the color blue. If you look at the dark blue rectangles on this lovely cloud-looking thing here, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. So even things like as we look at the data, so think of these as bits or pieces of your data. Why are some the same and why are some different? What if I looked at my customers by need instead of industry? Because there's some basic customer needs, like easy ordering. Well, I want to be able to order from you easily no matter what it is you're making or what industry I'm in. That's kind of a fundamental need. So what if we started looking at the needs very differently? The other thing is we tend to not be good at learning from outside our usual ordinary world. One of my clients does a lot of design work, and so before we do their strategic planning stuff, I always make us go to a museum just to look at the art and see things differently, just to get an idea of design, go look at some consumer products, who knows what. A great example of this is, if you love Taco Bell, those of you that are listening, great, and if you don't, that's also great, so I have no partiality to Taco Bell here, but in the 80s, they were really struggling operationally. And so they actually took a look at Toyota's production system. And Toyota is just so well known for having such a fabulous production system. So they started looking at what they did as manufacturing instead of fast food. And they took a look at their supply chain and started pushing out to their suppliers saying, we don't want, for lack of a better term, raw materials, literally and figuratively, coming in. We want you to supply us with prepared foods. So think of it as, to a degree, finished goods that might need some assembly.
Yeah.
And so they used the Toyota production system and outsourced their suppliers to deliver product in a fairly finished form, and then took the outside, not the outside, the behind the counter, the part you don't see in the back, and turned it into an assembly line. So they really used a manufacturing example to be able to change their supply chain and delivery. It lowered their costs and increased customer satisfaction, mainly because of consistency. I have no idea what it did or didn't do for taste.
Hey,
Apple
Deb,
did a similar, pardon?
No, go ahead.
Apple did a similar thing. When Apple was creating the Apple stores, they didn't look at Best Buy, or I can't remember if Circuit City was still around then or not. They looked at the Ritz-Carlton, which is the class, type A class benchmark for customer service, and Nordstrom's. So again, look outside your industry. Go to conferences, talk to people, etc., to get ideas of how you can do this differently.
Hey, Deb, just real quick, I love this idea, and I, like you, believe in it so much that it's so important to look outside of our industry. I believe, for example, the distribution industry has been incestuous for years. We just surround ourselves with like-minded individuals, and as a result, there is that lack of innovation. And one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs is when he said, look at the best that humans have done. He didn't say look at the best that your competitors have done. He didn't say go into your industry and look for best practices within your industry. He said look at the best that humans have done and then try to bring that into your business. And that's what Taco Bell did with Toyota, if I hear you right, and that's what Apple did with the Ritz-Carlton, if I hear you right. And I just think business in general, we need to do that more and more. So I appreciate your thought here. Great stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So part of getting good at doing pattern recognition and micro-level quirky whatever pattern recognition is by trying more, and again I'll use my favorite word, stuff. And so I just challenge and ask you all, are you trying enough things? So one of my excellent clients said to me that the CEO said he was a little concerned because they weren't failing enough, which I thought was a rather interesting and insightful comment. And he said, because we're not failing enough, I'm worrying we're not trying enough stuff. So think about how much are you really trying. Do you engage your customers in the process? Tool is basically used by people who teach the scientific method, not a lot by scientists. But if you think about your business in terms of a lifelong process of experimenting, you come up with a hypothesis, or you don't even know, you see something and say, oh, how could this happen? Create an experiment. You're going to have more than one variable. Sorry, that's life today. Learn, apply, and just keep doing that. So in my mind, and the way I think, business is a continual process of experimenting, learning, applying, and iterating. And from my own background with Bell Labs and AT&T, amazingly enough, even though this mode was inherent in how Bell Labs thought, it stopped being inherent in how AT&T thought, and as you can see, it got bought by the kids. The baby bells bought it back up. But if you look at IBM, even though it's had fits and starts, and there were times it wasn't always the best at it, IBM has been really great at this experiment, learn, apply, iterative process, which is why 102 years later, it is still around, somewhat pivoting from where it was, and AT&T is no longer around. So I just really encourage you all to just keep trying more stuff and get your customers involved with you when you do. And with that, I will turn it over to Dirk.
Deb, as always, great stuff, man. I've got a ton of notes from the last 10, 15 minutes, and I really appreciate it. And what a great way to end it, right? Try more stuff. And I think everybody on the call has probably written that down and underlined it and bolded, try more stuff. And what I'd love to do is build from there and say, all right, we need to iterate, we need to experiment, learn, and apply. Our business, as you said, is an experiment in process, right? So where do we try this more stuff? How do we just, out of the hundreds of thousands of different things we can try, how do we start thinking about where we should be trying more stuff? So to thinking in that way, let's begin with a fundamental question that I think every customer is asking of you, everybody on the call. You see, on the screen, this is your customer, and he has something on his mind. What he's thinking about is that you, your business, you are one of many. You're one of many suppliers that are competing for his time, for his attention, and ultimately competing for his spend. So think about it. You're one of many. So as you and your competitors are knocking on his door, he has a fundamental question on his mind. And this question, it's both provocative and powerful in its simplicity. What he wants to ask you is, why should I do business with you? Again, provocative and simple. Why should I do business with you? Now, how have our businesses traditionally answered that question? Well, from what I find is we've traditionally answered this question one of three ways. We said, well, you should buy from us because of our product. Our product is leading. It's got the best features. You need to buy because of our product offering. Yet we think about this a little bit more, and we realize we'll never again long-term have a competitive advantage with our product. Today's features and capabilities are equaled almost in real time. So he's gotten to the point that I shouldn't buy from you solely on product. So we go to our second thing and say, all right, well, you need to buy from us on price. Yet, as soon as we sharpen our pencils, as soon as we improve our efficiencies, and as soon as we drive costs out of our operations, what do our competitors do? Our competitors match it. So they start to say, well, I shouldn't buy from you on product or price either because that's all matched. So the third thing we've started to say is you should buy from us because of the services that we have to offer. But let's think about this as well. And even as we've looked to add value with our services through online ordering, through kitting, through whatever it happens to be, our customers tell us that in most of these services, there doesn't seem to be much differentiation in what we offer either. So understand that at some level, we're in the business of selling what every other company in our industry is selling. So the question becomes, and Deb, you talked about customer centricity. You talked about getting in your customer's shoes. The customer becomes, why should I do business with you? And I think innovation and thought leadership is going to lead us to some differentiating answers. So let's look at it a little bit more. So why do clients of IBM, you mentioned like Berlin Packaging in Chicago, garnered double-digit growth for the last 17 years, being led by one of the best businessmen I know, Andrew Berlin. Hey, each of these businesses are in different markets. They have different products and service offerings. These three businesses each have different pricing models, but what they all have in common, why their customers buy from them, is they lead their customers to a better future. One more time. I believe we buy IBM, us, customers, into a better future. Somebody I follow a lot is Bill Taylor. Bill Taylor is the founding editor of Help Shape the Global Conversation about the best way to compete and innovate and solve it. It's got to provide a perspective and an opinion to your market, to your customers, that's going to help them get to the future faster. So how can we help our customers get to the future faster? In my mind, it begins with what I call a seeing culture. It begins. Think about those questions that Deb asked you a little bit earlier. You know, when is the last time you tried to find your own products, order your own products? Can you see your business? Can you see the market from the customer's perspective? You begin developing a seeing culture within your own organization when we are committed to detecting opportunities for our customers before the customer is aware of a need. Now, unfortunately, what I find is lying. Interested in seeing the future because they're trapped in the moment. They're trapped in the day-to-day. They're trapped in getting for results. Their metrics are short-term, so it's all about today. So they don't develop this seeing culture. You know, I had a very electrical distributor sales rep, and we walked into again, simple but provocative. He looked at me and he walked in and he said, every plant has, and he's right. And if we scale that up, every plant has inefficiencies because they don't have a seeing culture. Those of you who know me know that I'm a huge Bono. They're stuck in this moment. They can't develop the seeing culture around the day-to-day. So, again, Bill Taylor, the only sustainable form of market leadership is thought leadership. And if we want to lead our customers to the future through this thought leadership, through this seeing culture, I'd like to introduce you to a tool called the Thought Leadership Pyramid, which might provide a roadmap for you as to how you can bring this thinking into your organization. What you'll see in this Thought Leadership Pyramid is that it has 4 layers within 2 sections. At the base of the pyramid, you see that the first section focuses on the systemic shifts in our markets, economy, technology, buying habits, demographics, even geopolitical shifts. When you hear the term the age of disruption, it's at this systemic level that the world, our markets, our customers are changing and need to change. And then at the top half of the pyramid, we see customer centricity. This gets us closer to the ground and ultimately engaged with our customers and the spend potential that they have with your organization. And as we just started a few minutes ago, the customer at this level is saying, you know, with all that I'm contending, all the options that I have, why should I do business with you? Can you help me get to the future faster and better than anybody else? So as indicated, by the pyramid, as we move from the bottom to the top of the pyramid, we begin with the macro issues that are impacting you and your customers, your markets, and moving up to the strategic and the tactical, those micro issues of the customers, of what the impact will be. Needs that can and must be solved and addressed today, maybe in real time. So in the time I have left, let's look at these 4 layers and how they tie into thought leadership and innovation that we might be able to bring to our business. So the first layer at this systemic shift level is what we call the mega trends or the big shift. I think every one of us will agree that our world is changing. Now, let's take that another level. Our world is changing, and there are structural changes, fundamental shifts in the economy that are happening right now that every business must be aware of and must think hard and figure out what these mean to our businesses and how we must innovate to succeed. Not just for tomorrow, but I'm talking about for the future, to remain relevant as we go forward. And the degree we can understand these megatrends, these big shifts, with clarity and simplicity, the degree we can communicate these is going to be that thought leadership as they impact our markets. The day we can do that is the day we get closer to winning and answering that question, why should that customer buy from us? There's big generational shifts from baby boomers to millennials and digital natives. We're entering that age of big data. There's energy shifts. People are moving from the suburbs to the urban areas. Of course, technology shifts, the cloud, mobile commuting, 3D printing, digital sensors. We could go on. These are mega trends, big shifts that are impacting every one of our businesses, and most importantly, the markets we serve and the customers we serve. Inferential Focus, a great organization out of New York City, calls this the big shift. Steve Denning writes in Forbes about what he calls the 3-speed economy. Deloitte publishes their shift index. Thomas Friedman continues to remind us that average is over because of these megatrends and these big shifts that are taking place. As leaders of our businesses, we must find new ways of creating value, and we've got to lean forward in determining what this big shift means to us, our business, our markets, our customers, so that we can innovate, not just for today, but for the future, to create, deliver, and capture value through understanding these mega shifts. Now, Ken Hay is the managing partner of Inferential Focus. He's going to be with us on October 29th and 30th at our UnleashWD Innovation Summit. Zilliant, thank you so much. You're a sponsor of this. But we're so excited that Ken is going to help us understand these big shifts and these mega trends. And he's been kind enough to provide this briefing to us. And every one of you on the webinar today, you'll be getting a copy of this emailed out to you on Friday, I believe. So you'll have that. Another Unleashed speaker by the name of Dr. Jay Johnson, he reminds us that some of the big shifts on the technology time frame, technology perspective, is that technology has moved from the mainframe to the mini computer, distributed PC, internet PC, and now it's all about social, mobile, analytics, cloud. And I still see companies that are trying to serve their companies with these PCs on the desktop, and most have got the the high-speed connection now, but they haven't even thought about moving to social, mobile, analytics, and cloud, and potentially they will get passed by, and we need to figure out that thought leadership around these mega trends and how technology, in this case, is going to be able to allow us to innovate around the real needs of our customers. So, number one, the systemic shift are those mega trends and big shifts. Again, the degree we can understand those and understand the relevance to the markets we serve is going to allow us to innovate in those appropriate areas. Second, in terms of systemic shifts, are the market dynamics. Those markets we serve are changing just as fast as the global mega trends. So at this level, if we're going to truly wear the customer's shoes, as Deb so rightfully reminds us to do, we've got to, get close to those markets and understand how the industry is performing, how it's performed in the past, in the present, the future projections, what type of growth rates, what types of product launches are coming into this market. We've got to analyze why and how, what needs those are serving. We've got to understand the market dynamics in terms of the top players and distribution channels and supply chains and core competencies. I mean, if we're truly going to innovate around that customer's needs, we've got to understand that market and, understand, the potential disruptions that are coming and the new innovations. And, we do this on a day-to-day basis as we're reading the Harvard Business Review and the Wall Street Journal and all those other things. There are also some other sources out there that you see up on the screen that can help you through a subscription model stay abreast to these market dynamics and bring that thought leadership to the industries and the markets you serve to drive that innovative thinking. So, systemic shifts. As we move to the top half of this thought leadership pyramid, we move to the customer centricity, and we begin by looking at this third level, which points us to understand the desired customer outcomes. In a business-to-business relationship, the customer outcomes are longer-term type, let's say needs, but they're longer-term outcomes that our market and our customers are looking for. These are the business outcomes that they're looking to the future to strive to achieve, on a high level. As I work with distributors and manufacturers today, they're really struggling with how are we going to remain relevant. That's an outcome that they want. They want an outcome of becoming more innovative. They're looking to tear down the hierarchy-type leadership that came out of World War II and develop a more network-type leadership within their organization. That's an outcome that they're looking for. Your customers are looking to become number one or number two in the market. That's a longer-term outcome. Or they're looking to introduce, 2 new products each quarter. That's an outcome that they're looking to achieve. So how do you do this? Well, building upon what Deb talked about, we could talk about the importance of consumer closeness. I love this book, The Game Changer, by the retired CEO from Procter & Gamble, A.G. Lafley, and he's now just come back to lead that organization again. And then, the world's foremost consultant, Ram Charan, and they talk about customer closeness and the innovation at P&G, and they said, in order to understand the real outcomes of our customers, we had to get out of our offices and we had to become immersed in the real world and the daily routines of our consumers in the stores of the retailers that we partner with. It's all about understanding those outcomes. Yeah, Deb.
One of the things I find really fascinating with this is several of my friends were in the open innovation area and helped start that at P&G. And when Lafley left, there was a definite decline. People were actually left the company themselves, and they said, well, the words were there. There just wasn't the emphasis on understanding customer needs the same way, being able to innovate around them and doing open innovation. And now Lafley's come back, and if you look at that interim time, you can see earnings and stock price go down, and I don't know if it's related or not. But what it gets down to is it still is very dependent on people, not just process. So it's got to be a leadership emphasis, program, passion, because if the leader changes, it's hard to sustain that, even if it's part of your culture as you think it might be.
Deb, without question, and I love what you used a word that we don't use in business very much, right, and that's passion. And I know in the Power of Pull, John Hagel, talks about the importance of passion. Without passion, right, it will, as you said, become just words, as it did at Procter & Gamble and all the businesses on the line today. Yeah, great insight. Thank you. And I think if we have that passion, again, we can look at the best that humans have done, as Steve Jobs said, and the best that maybe Procter & Gamble has to implement this. And they've implemented, they've brought that passion you talked about through something called Living It. And what this does, it's a process that they allow the passion for innovation. It enables the employees to go out and live with the consumers for several days in their homes, eating meals, with the family, go along on shopping trips. Deb, I was going to do this, but they said that I'd have to wash clothes using Tide, and I said, you know, I'll look for another one to do. But anyway, it's getting out there and living it, using that passion. Something else they do, you know, is they talk about working it. So in the business-to-business environment, it's when the employees work behind the counter of that small shop to gain insight into why shoppers buy and don't buy, how the shopkeeper stacks shelves. Boy, if you're a distributor of building materials products, for example, I'm going to ask you the question, when's the last time you were on a job site at 6 a.m. and you stayed with that contractor, you stayed with that framer until 6 p.m. at night? That's working it. That's when you truly understand the outcomes that the individuals are looking for. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to do this. Here's a couple of shots from a customer immersion that I and my customer facilitated, again, just a couple of weeks ago, where we lived with this outdoor power equipment distributor for a day. I mean, we got there from the time they unlocked the front gate until they turned off the lights and locked the gate in the evening. We shadowed that owner, and man, there were points of boredom throughout that day, but then there were points of enlightenment where we really understood the outcome. So customer outcomes are critical, and again, Deb, I agree with you. We've got to get out of the office to do that. And in the interest of time, let me jump to the top part of our thought leadership and the customer centricity. And this is where we get to the actual needs, those shorter-term needs of the individual customer. If we're going to lead the customer to a better future, we, of course, need to understand today's needs, desires, and preferences as well. And it's essential at this point to be asking the right questions, to listen, to understand the customer's beliefs are important here. And, you know, for a good part of my career, this is where we, you know, working with sales organizations, talked about that consultative sales process to really understand the customer's needs. But doing it once isn't enough. It's got to be a continuous dialogue. And we've got to understand the customer's strategies, the specific and timely initiatives, those opportunities that they're looking for, you know, in the short term to improve profitability, lower costs, drive sales, and the like. And again, there's some great tools out there, you know, some great program software and services from the likes of NetSuite, Salesforce, and our sponsor today, Zilliant, that these companies aren't, in my mind, software companies. These are companies that give you unique insight into your customers' businesses that allow you to drive strategic conversations. They allow you to drive differentiation. They allow you to provide real value. They allow you to drive thought leadership. And they truly do allow you at that customer needs level, allow you to help your customer achieve a better future. So let's circle all the way back, and then Barrett, I think we're gonna open it up for some questions, and let's circle it back. So when the customer asks you, why should I do business with you? If we think about everything that Deb's talked about, if we think about this seeing culture, if we think about you know, these four layers of thought leadership, we're going to be able to lead more strategic discussions with our customers. We're going to be able to innovate around the real needs of the customers. You'll be able to differentiate yourself, and you're going to be able to help your customer lean forward by, quite frankly, disrupting their thinking, bringing new energy and, dare I say, Deb, passion and insight into your customers and your market's strategic thinking. So why should I do business with you? You'll be able to answer that you can lead them to a better future. So I hope that's had value. Barrett, thanks much. I think maybe some questions have been coming in, hopefully, that in the short time we have left we can talk about.
We have time for maybe just one I can insert, but let me say, both of you, Deb and Dirk, what a fantastic job. You have really unlocked this topic for us. I mean, you've given us the principles, the examples, the tools. You've shown us that customers want to be led into the future, and that we've got to shift our lens if we're going to understand the issues and the solutions that are the stepping stones to that future. One question that's come in, let me try to read it quickly. It's detailed. You mentioned, Dirk, earlier that the distribution industry is limited in innovation because they surround themselves with like-minded people, and they fail to look outside their industry. This person in the audience says they're currently studying the challenges that 3PLs, the third-party logistics providers, face when trying to innovate. And research suggests that this industry in particular is one of the least innovative industries. Can you speak to what you would consider some of the challenges for the logistics industry in innovation? Have you observed how people are overcoming some of the barriers in innovation in 3PL?
Yeah, so you know what I'd love first, great question, and you know I really believe, Barrett, right? In that question, we could replace 3PL, right, with a lot of different businesses. I mean, the core of the question is we are stagnant in terms of innovation, and so we've got to ask why. And if the question came in saying that within 3PL, third-party logistics, that it has become very stagnant. One of the things that I find is that because for years we have been taught to look for other best practices in terms of logistics, right, which is phenomenal. So let's go and let's develop partnerships and relationships with other 3PLs, with other distributors, what have you, and look for those best practices. I think that very thinking, again, we've got to change our lens, all right? That very thinking has stifled innovation. What we've got to do is we've got to change our lens from best practices to next practices. What are those next practices that I can learn from the Toyotas or the Apples or the Procters and Gambles of the world? And what can I bring into this industry that has not been thought of before? I guarantee you, if we change our lens and say we've got to get better at getting outside of 3PL and look for those next practices, that will be the spark to drive a new innovative culture, new innovative thinking within those businesses.
I would also submit, this might be a little heretical, but that's me, because I don't like the whole idea of best practices. I think it's also just an issue of best practicing. So we always want to have this like once and done. Oh, well, here's the practice, go do it.
Well said.
And it gets to that continually iterative way of looking at the world, which is, what if we just are really excellent at practicing? You know, the practice makes perfect. So instead of best practices, it gets to that, keep trying more stuff, practicing more stuff, so that you get enough things out there that one of them or two of them are going to hit.
Well said.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you both. We have come to the end of our time today. Boy, I wish we had another hour, because I'm sure we could go on and explore this, and maybe we'll have opportunities to do so deeper and further in the future. For those on the call, if we were unable to answer your question during the webinar, we will send a response to you via email. Thank you once again, Deb and Dirk. Fantastic session. A recording of this webinar will be made available on Thursday, and we'll send a follow-up email to everyone on the call with the link to that recording. And feel free to listen again, share it with your colleagues, bring other people into the fold. You know this was too good to keep just to yourself. Also, please be on the watch for our next webinar in the series, which will happen in the month of September. We'll announce by email a few weeks in advance. Thank you, everyone, for your time today.